Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. I'm reviewing all of Elton John's studio albums and rating each track out of 10. Now, in my previous video, I visited 21 at 33, Elton John's album from 1980. Now, I don't know what it is about this album, but I seem to have had a record number of comments, both on Facebook and on YouTube, as a response to my video. So I'm going to run through a few of them now and respond to what you've had to say. So let's have a look at a few comments coming in from Facebook to begin with. Now, Stephen Corbett loves this album and reckons that Elton's albums between 1980 and 82 are underappreciated and far superior to Ice on Fire, Leather Jackets and Red Strikes Back. Well, oddly enough, those three albums I still haven't reviewed. I've kind of skirted around that period in a way. What I would say to Stephen, though, is I do enjoy Ice on Fire, particularly of those three. But we'll have to wait and see for my grading of all the tracks before we know how 21 at 33 compares with them. Now, I did ask for your favourite tracks on this album. Anissa Fox singles out Sartorial Eloquence and Little Genie, very reminiscent of Daniel, says Anissa. I'd probably agree with you on that one. Freak Montenegro also identifies those two as their favourites on the album. Now, Marie Veltzheimer singles out Give Me the Love, that's the closing track, of course, as her favourite. Love his piano voice and the horn section. Yeah, it's a very underrated track, Give Me Your Love, I think. And I commented on the previous video that it could even have gone on for longer. And I don't often say that about Elton tracks. Some of them on 21 at 33 are a little over long. But Give Me Your Love has enough in there for a kind of 8-minute sort of it ain't gonna be easy treatment that we had on A Single Man album. Lots of people enjoy that final track. Now, Keith Pells is saying that the album brings back a lot of very fond memories, absolutely loving the title. Well, of course, I was critical of the title because I didn't think it actually told you much about the theme of the album. It didn't give it an identity. But Keith's a big fan, and the use of primary colours on the design. Little Genie was a big hit in the United States, and Sartorial Eloquence a terrific second single. Well, no argument from me on that. Both of them quality cuts. He also likes Two Rooms. Yeah, that's a good song. Chasing the Crown, so-so. I Don't Want to Fall in Love Again, okay as well. And he's a big fan of Judy Zook and the influence that she has on the album. Of course, she penned that last song. All in all, a fun album, says Keith. Pamela Sosnowski likes the whole album, but she picks out Two Rooms at the End of the World as her favourite track. That's an interesting story song, isn't it? And as I said before, that would be good as a title to the whole album. She says, it reminds me very much of Steely Dan style. We've got to say, I know nothing about Steely Dan at all. So if somebody wants to recommend a good album starter for Steely Dan for me, please comment below and I will give it a listen. Other standouts, White Lady, White Powder, Chasing the Crown and Take Me Back. Probably three of my least favourite tracks, actually. But everybody likes different ones, don't they? We're all Elton fans, so that's fair enough. Judith Burnt says, great album. Gary Lale corrects me on one point. Thank you, Gary. I talked about the song Religion. I said it was from Ice on Fire, but of course it's too low for Zero. So apologies for that error. Now, Gary O'Brien says it's an okay album, but he likes it more than I did. His favourites are Sartorial Eloquence, Never Gonna Fall in Love and Give Me the Love. Fair enough. There are some good songs, but as an album it lacks a bit of an edge. I think that's a fair comment, actually. It hasn't quite got the edge of a Madman or a Tumbleweed, but it's a decent collection of songs. Now, Tom Stanton has fond memories of the album, not because of its brilliance, but he takes it within the context of Elton's discography after two experimental low-achieving albums, Tom Bell Sessions and Victim of Love. It represented a return to form, kind of, and return to the charts with Little Genie. So I think that's fair enough. It's a part of the recovery process after that difficult disco session. Can we call the Tom Bell Sessions actually an album? I don't know whether I should review that as an album or as kind of an EP. Perhaps you can let me know on that one. Now let's see what some of my subscribers on YouTube are saying about the album. Now, Drums and Piano says that their grandfather bought this album back in the day. Well, it wasn't that long ago, was it? And it was the first Elton album he'd bought since Blue Moves, rating it as one of the best of Elton's in the 1980s. Now, Davey says that he's always liked this album, having bought it on vinyl back in 1980. He plays it regularly. Favourite tracks, Little Genie, Sartorial Eloquence, but there aren't any that he dislikes, so that's a pretty positive response to that one. Mahan says that Two Rooms is his favourite song from the album. And Chris Booth says it's interesting that Elton doesn't like to play Little Genie live. And that's interesting, isn't it? Because it is obviously a popular song. Lots of people have mentioned that one. And it's a great track to listen to. Maybe it's a little bit too laid back. He does prefer the upbeat songs for most of his live performances, doesn't he? Now, there's an interesting comment from Galito, who says this album is one of Elton's most interesting. At first sight, the album cover seems bland. However, it does make sense because notice how most of the songs form up a love story throughout the whole album, including the B-sides. So I referred him back actually, forwards really, to the Fox album, of which there is this rather cheesy but full-length video of the whole album. And there's kind of a story that links together all the tracks on that. Maybe a similar sort of thing could have been done for this album, creating a story that weaves through the various tracks to give it this kind of narrative feel as it moves forward. 007 has got an interesting vinyl version of this album. White Lady, White Powder and Dear God have been replaced with Conquer the Sun and White Man Danger, which are two fairly rare B-sides. That sounds like a collector's edition of some sort. 007 has rated every track in detail, and the top ones for 007 are Little Genie, 9.5 out of 10, Sartorial Eloquence, 9 out of 10, and coming down, Conquer the Sun, which I haven't reviewed yet, gets 10 out of 10, a very beautiful melody. So there were a lot of other tracks recorded at the same time. I'm going to have to do those in a separate video because there's quite a few rare ones here, some of them recorded in French. Now, Mark Silver can't believe that I graded this record higher than Captain Fantastic. And it is pretty surprising, isn't it? Now, I have said, a few other people have made this point. I have said that I might go back and have another listen to Captain Fantastic and maybe regrade some of those tracks. I've tried to be consistent all the way through. And as you know, I respect Captain Fantastic very much. It's just that I don't think it has the consistency of tracks as albums like Goodbye to Brick Road, Madman Across the Water, Tumbleweed Connection. I just don't think track for track it's as good as those other albums. But of course, you may have a completely different viewpoint on that. But I will check out that those gradings I gave, and I'll make another video about that. Nat Pash says that I should do a direct comparison with Captain Fantastic and this one. This one sitting above that is wrong, just wrong in my opinion anyway. Does your mood on the day affect your ratings? Well, I hope not actually, and I don't just grade them on one day. One thing I do though is I grade the tracks as I go through, but I try not to work out any sort of average. So it's a complete surprise when I do the calculation at the end. That's why when I was doing Tumbleweed, I was amazed to find that actually came out on top, because I kind of wasn't expecting that in a sense. But when it did, I could see why it did, because there's so many high quality tracks on that album. Now, several people, this is just to finish with, have commented on my review of the track White Lady, White Powder, perhaps suggesting that it might glorify drug taking and that I should take a closer look at the lyrics. Well, yeah, fair point, I think. Let's just have a look at see what it says in that first verse. I've had my face to the mirror for 24 hours staring at a line of white powder. Well, that doesn't sound particularly pleasurable, does it? High-priced madness pays the tab. I've scraped too much of nothing from your plastic bag. I'm a catatonic son of a bitch who's had a touch too much of white powder. Okay, well, that is fairly negative, isn't it, about drug taking? There's nothing about the sort of the high life there, which is trying to recommend this as a lifestyle. And then it goes on, and she's a habit I can't handle for a reason I can't say. I'm in love with a wild white lady. She's as sweet as the stories say. That could be about an addiction that they're trying to get out of. Maybe I was a bit unfair on the tone of that. As I said in my review, the tune is pretty good, and the refrain particularly. So that is possibly a track that I could review and push up slightly more. Anyway, thanks for all your comments about this. I've tried to include as many as I can there. Clearly you like this one, you've got a lot of opinions on it. I'm going to be back with another review soon. The next album I'm tackling is Leather Jackets from the 1980s. So if you've got any thoughts on that one, drop them below and I'll include them in one of my videos. Subscribe if you want to. See you next time. Don't forget, we're still standing.